My siblings, please reach out your hands in prayers. Most High, we ask that I may speak with your voice. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Stand erect, hold your heads high, because your liberation is at hand. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. May Christ be with you.
And also with you.
A reading from the Good News according to the book of Luke.
Glory to you, O Christ.
Some people were talking about the temple, how it was decorated with beautiful stones and ornaments dedicated to God. Jesus said, as for the things you are admiring, the time is coming when not even one stone will be left on another. All will be demolished. They asked him, Teacher, when will these things happen? What sign will show that these things are about to happen? Jesus said, watch out that you aren't deceived. Many will come in my name saying, I'm the one, and it's time. Don't follow them. When you hear of wars and rebellions, don't be alarmed. These things must happen first, but the end won't happen immediately. Then Jesus said to them, nations and kingdoms will fight against each other. There will be great earthquakes and wide-scale food shortages and epidemics. There will also be terrifying sights and great signs in the sky. But even before all this occurs, they will take you into custody and harass you because of your faith. They will hand you over to synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before monarchs and governors because of my name. This will provide you with an opportunity to testify. Make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance. I'll give you words and wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to counter or contradict. You will be betrayed by parents and siblings and relatives and friends. They will execute some of you. Everyone will hate you because of my name. Still, not a hair on your head will be lost. By holding fast, you will gain your lives. This is the gospel of our Christ.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You ain't going to be surprised when you hear a little liberation gospel today, are you? With the readings we've got and the timing we have, oh yeah. So I think it's kind of funny that I managed not to bring the bag that has all the brocade bits and stuff and the stole and the things that show our season. But I'm not sure if this will really show. When we talk about girding up your loins for battle, it's actually not fighting in your skirt and tucking your skirt into your belt so that it's not in your way while you're swinging a sword. So stuff isn't in your way while you're battling. So maybe there's actually kind of a backhanded reason that I forgot. Because God uses stuff, so I'm going to use this as a metaphor, whether it was me or them. Really. But let's look at this stuff. And let's remember that I'm talking about this. The morning after, I was singing at a Trans Day of Remembrance concert in a trans choir stance in Seattle. So we have Malachi. And we hear God of heavenly forces. And then we hear a funky thing that I need to unpack for you. I will spare them just as parents spare a child who serves them. I need to point out the actual Hebrew theology here, which is that a parent's child serves them just by continuing the family line. It's not saying God's only going to spare the good kids. It's saying God's going to protect God's own inheritance. God will make sure to shelter them. Because the way that a parent spares a child is not by sparing the child from themselves, but by protecting the child from the battle around them. So don't think this is some abusive thing. This is instead, the world's gone to heck and there are swords flying and the parent is wrapped over their kid, which is what you do, right? And that's also what God does. that instinctively, that deeply, because who do you think programmed that into us? And then the psalm response that I used sounded a whole lot more like marching music, right? Street chant music. Normally, I'm doing fairly straightforward chant. And what I did for this one was, God rose up to establish justice. And that ought to be the chorus of any marching song we've had as we lock arms and we march toward oppressors, which is highly relevant because in this last week, we have had more clergy assaulted simply trying to walk to an ICE detention center. Clergy roughed up. I follow El Dowd. It was a collection of Lutherans were among them. She's one of the people that they roughed up. Let's pick the small, pretty one and beat her up too. Oh, we're playing that game, are we? This is the time we're in. We have now had 2 clergy hit in the head with munitions, and they are overtly roughing us up. And by the way, they're roughing medics up too. So I'm feeling a little bit of street energy going on right now. Because God rises up to establish justice, and God rises up to save all the earth's poor. And human rage will turn to praise when God dresses God's self with whatever remains of God's wrath. Because, yeah, God's hurt when we are hurt, wounded when we are wounded, bleeding when we are bleeding. That's the whole point of sending Christ. To show us viscerally that God is all in with us. We don't have a clockmaker God. We have a meddling God who cares deeply, who loves powerfully, and grieves in a way that shakes mountains when we harm each other. So yes, keep your promises to God, and let's bring our gifts to the awesome one, because God breaks the spirit of rulers, and God is terrifying to the monarchs of this earth. One of the speakers in the concert last night made the point that trans women need big sisters, and she ended it with a point that as a big sister, she knows darn well that bullies fear when the big sister comes, because big sisters cast out demons. And her words are still resonating inside me. Bullies fear when the big sister comes because big sisters cast out demons. And it reminds me of a time that I went to a pride festival in Yelm, which is not one of our more progressive towns. And I went to be a safety. I went to be a clergy presence. And what I noticed and appreciated was the dad patrol. And the amount of dads that were out there. And we were checking each other's eyes, and we were watching our spaces, and we were doing this little Overwatch thing that was completely and utterly unplanned. I didn't know these other dads. I don't know that all of them were dads, but the dad energy watchful zones were there. Bullies fear the people who know that the ones being oppressed are their family and deserve their protection. Because they start to be outnumbered. Then we get to 2 Thessalonians. Now, Paul, in most of the places he was, made tents. This is why one of the phrases you'll hear for clergy who make their own living is tent makers. We believe that he made the black goatskin tents that were in use throughout the region. And if you think about it, he must have had a whole lot of little Kathy clutches, little stitch and teaching, shall we say, wherever he was in the town making tents. So Paul says you need to imitate us because we were not undisciplined. We weren't arrogating to ourselves. Hear the word arrogance in that? Rights that we could have claimed as teachers to be supported. That was normal. A traveling teacher was supported. Paul said, no, I'm bringing food to the table. I'm bringing food too. I'm bringing my labor too. Because he had a labor he could do and he could teach at the same time. Those of you who've been around me when I'm beating on something, I think it might be kind of like that. I like to kind of work on something and talk. And then I want you to be careful with the last part of this reading. If anyone doesn't want to work, doesn't want to contribute, they shouldn't eat from the shared table. And here I need you to have the mental image of what these tables were in the early church. That it was a potluck and people brought in food. When we're talking about encouraging people to work quietly, don't brag about working, just get something done and bring your own food to put on the table to share. Contribute to the sharing. The y'all come in of Catholicism is meant to be y'all come in with what you got and take what you need. That is not communist teaching. That is Christ teaching. So that's what Paul's talking about. And the working can be taking care of people. These folks are expressly called meddling in other people's business, not actually helping them. Because it would have counted as work if they were visiting the shut-ins, if they were sponging the wounds of the injured, if they were doing something that was contributing to the community that they were taking food from the table of, to give something to the table of. It's that shared table, that open table. Remember, one of the things we have on our t-shirts is open tables. That's why. It's part of why. And then we have Christ talking about the temple. And oh, the pretty temple with its gold and its stones and its thises and its that and its sevens of everything and pomegranates everywhere and purple fabric. And we get the whole detail, right? Okay. That's actually the first temple. We don't actually have the architectural details on the second temple, but I'm pretty sure that they went beyond that because it is actually referred to as this glorious thing. And Jesus says, yeah, and it's all going to be demolished. And then he says bad things are going to happen. And people are going to claim that, oh, this is bad, and therefore I am the Savior who will get you out of it. I am the person to follow out of it. I am the strong leader who will keep you safe. But I want you to remember that Jesus' way was not the axe. It was the bundle of sticks tied together. It was the community. It was Jesus' way. Jesus had us all come together. 2 fish and 5 loaves sparked a giving that sparked a feeding. And the food multiplied. Because Jesus inspired it, called for it, made a space for it. And that's who we're the body of. We need to call for it and make a space for it. And we need to march forward with it. We need to walk toward Jerusalem too. And lots of things go down. And lots of badness happens. And the truth is, there's never a time in the world when there are not wars and rumors of wars and epidemics and thises and that's and stuff. And Paul may have simply been talking about this minor inconvenience of the temple being destroyed in 70 AD. Most of those things happened right around then. We don't know. What we do know is that the teaching still works for us because there are a few things that need to be broken down. And there are a few things that need to be built up. And there are a whole bunch of people that need safety. Says the guy who has a trans evacuee in his basement right now from Utah. And let me tell you, she has spent 2 weeks sleeping and resting and eating. finally wrapping her head around being safe. And I don't even know the stories that led to her evacuating. And I want to tell you that every time you get put on the spot, if you stop and listen inside, you will find what to say and what to do. The reason we do all these teachings is we build up this knowledge. We build up these stories and snippets and song snippets and everything else so that it's running in the back of your head so that the Spirit can tease them out and guide you forward. This is absolutely not the homily I should have prepared. This was a time when I needed to speak from the Spirit moving in me, from the night I had last night. Because that's what God lets me do. If I get out of the way, God can talk through me. If I get out of the way, God can serve through me. God can heal through me. I got to get out of the way. I got to be a channel, a conduit. I've got to open myself to God and the God I see in that person in front of me and let God flow from the God moving through me to the God needing in them. Because God's in all of us. That's the thing. We cannot look on the face of someone God does not love, which includes, by the way, people who are beating you up. Just so you're clear. God's really unpleased right then, but God loves them. And sometimes we can stop it. I want you to remember times in past protests when a flower was put into a gun barrel, and that became a symbol. Right? So when we're dealing with all of this stuff, and we're dealing with so much need for justice right now, speak your truth even if your voice shakes. Be out there online. Be out there with the resources you've got. Be out there in the street if you can. Be out there writing letters, calling Congress critters. Be out there where you can, how you can. And do remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint, y'all. Right now, we've got a time. We also have a couple of good things that have happened. Let's leverage some of those. And let's continue to reach out to those who are not included in the good things. And I'm not just saying this because I'm your trans priest. Okay? So let's gird our loins and remember that the first place that we got to do battle is inside ourselves and our own insecurities, right? So when I give a battle call, there's all the but I that happens. And I want us to actually daylight the but I, Lord, I stutter. I'm the least of the tribes. I've got a gimp. I got a this, I got a that. Let's talk about that because there are still ways. And the important thing is not to feel defeated about what you can't do, but find the thing that you can do. To make the good trouble you can do and be the good trouble that they know is watching. Don't ever let the fascisti think that nobody's watching them. Yeah? So let's talk about it.